Anti-citizen, welcome to the Vogue podcast.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Vogue podcast, in which I'll be interviewing professional voice actor and casting director Michael Schwalbe, whom you guys might know best as the voice of the Combine Charger, also known as Wallhammer from Half-Life Alyx. But I wouldn't be surprised if you would have heard his voice in games like Genshin Impact or Mafia the Definitive Edition. So thank you so much for coming on, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. Those were some interesting credits that you chose.
Well, I mean, yeah, but to be quite honest, I know you from Half-Life Alyx. Half-Life was one of
Okay.
my favorite games, and you've done the combines there, or at least
Yeah, I did.
one of the times.
I think most people probably know me as the voice of Kawaki from Boruto or Double Dealer in Transformers War for Cybertron, but who's keeping track?
Oh yeah, I mean, you've had a lot of projects you've worked on over the years, and
Yeah, it's kind of bewildering.
oh, I bet it is.
Like look at your IMDb and you're like, did I really do all those things? And because it kind of fades into a blur.
Oh, I bet it does, especially when, some credits get added that you've never done, because, anyone can edit IMDb,
I
so.
have not had that happen somehow. I've got multiple friends that have had horror stories trying to get credits taken off that they didn't actually do. But so far, fingers crossed, I have not had to deal with that.
Well, let's hope you won't have to do that. Oh,
Agreed.
all right. I mean, yeah, acting, that's what you do. So, when did you find interest in acting?
I honestly, I wouldn't say that I started from the interest in acting, although I guess I've taken a bit of a different route through my career than maybe most would. I didn't really do much acting. I was a musician and a
Hmm.
singer. And so I was trying to hack it in the music industry prior to voice acting, but I was doing it at a time when, the early 2010s were like the worst time ever for the music industry
Hmm.
since its inception, basically. And so I'm in Nashville at the time, and studios and production houses and record labels are going under like left and right. And so I'm like, you know what? My band is struggling to get off the ground. What else can I do with my voice that's going to make money? And so I started looking into more voice acting side of things, talking and narrating instead of singing. And it scratched the same kind of performance itch that I loved with music, and it still had a lot of the same kind of creative elements to it. So that's what got me started, and then ever since it's just been trying to hone the craft really.
Hmm. Well, so if I get this correctly, you don't do any on-stage acting or on-camera acting.
No, I really don't. I did a couple, I did a couple like high school theater productions back in the day, but like nothing really worth writing home about. And
Hmm.
now I find that for the most part, on camera stuff, like I'm not the best at memorizing copy. Like I can, but I'm really good at memorizing music. But for some reason, just having the words on the page, it just doesn't quite sink in the
Yeah.
same. So it's something. Well, and also on camera auditions are just way more work and way more annoying than
Yeah.
voiceover auditions, and we have to audition so much in this job that it really it just makes my life kind of miserable if I have to do a bunch of on camera auditions too.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, of course. What is your favorite part about voice acting?
I mean, I would say probably the variety of, we're all very ADHD people and in this business, and so having something that's new and different and fresh every single time is makes it not quite so monotonous. Although I'm pretty tired of the audition grind by this point, if
Yeah.
I'm honest. So I'm kind of, the variety is not quite as fun as it used to be, especially now that, AI and whatnot is
Oh,
making the
yes.
industry difficult.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. AI is making this stuff really difficult, especially these days, because it's getting so well good at doing what, people are used to doing. So that wouldn't be nice.
Particular, it hits some genres harder than others. Like the really boring, employee training modules or like
Hmm.
technical narration stuff that doesn't require a lot of acting chops. It can do pretty well, and so.
Yeah, for that part, yeah, they
But
could be.
even like low, NPCs for really small bit parts in indie video games are having a lot of AI
Hmm.
implementation, and the tough part for actors is that those kind of jobs are usually the like what do you like entry level things that like help you get a bridge into the higher level stuff, and
Hmm.
so it's making it like I'm still working, and I still have a full-time career, but there are a lot of actors that are trying to get in the biz that now
Hmm.
don't have those little bread and butter jobs that get them in there.
Oh yeah. Well, you see, I think AI will never kind of, replace voiceover because, voiceover just requires that human emotion that the AI just can't replicate, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a tough few years while the industry figures that out. I don't think it's going to make the industry. I don't think it's going to replace voice acting like forever. I think it might make it really hard for. Well, look at synthesizers when they came about in the
Oh
in the
yeah.
70s and 80s. Did it make playing guitar like not a thing anymore? Did it make being a musician in an orchestra not a thing anymore? No. Did it really, really hurt that career? Yes. So it doesn't have to be like totally extinguished for it to still make a big impact.
Oh yeah. I wanted to ask you kind of, about these voice synthesizers and, the
Sure.
usage of AI, because anyone, can just replicate whatever voice you did for whatever project. What do you think about that? People just being able to replicate your voice with AI and using it for whatever they'd like it to.
Well, I mean, obviously I hate it. I mean, they're stealing what we do without attribution or credit, and then they're
Hmm.
using it for. But it's not just they're not just using it for like projects. They're using it to troll and harass people. And I mean, I've had my voice synthesized and used to post videos. Harassing me with like racial slurs and hate speech with like in my voice, saying my home address and stuff. Like these are evil people that are
Yeah.
using our stuff for evil shit, and it's another like level of identity theft beyond even like stealing a social security number or like credit card. Like there's not much that's more personal to you than your voice is, and so
Oh yeah,
stealing
definitely.
a voice is an intensely intense level of oh, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a huge invasion, of our personal space and our privacy that I don't think normal, uh, the average public really understands, like how wrong that feels, how violating it feels. So,
Yeah, the people
um,
and, the fans don't look at it that way,
no,
probably.
they think that it's, oh, it's a funny toy, it's a
Yeah.
whatever, but you're basically making us say things that we don't consent to and then putting it in our voice so that we are potentially liable for those things that are said. I ended up getting interviewed by Vice about it after the people stole my voice and posted all this shit. And it's just really, really terrible, for lack of a better word. So I don't think that it's going to happen forever, but that's because I hold some potentially naive hope that maybe the government is going to actually outlaw the technology because they should.
Hmm.
Not just from like a biased perspective, but there's quite literally no upside to the technology. The upside is either you let people steal the voices of other people and impersonate them, or you profit off of, or I mean, or you like do political figures or these phone scams that are going around
Uh-huh.
where people are like pretending to be somebody's daughter and then saying, "Oh, I got in a car wreck. I need you to send me money." Like there's just
Yeah.
no good use of the technology outside of I could see like potentially of an actor like making a voice clone of themselves and then licensing that out for like passive income, but that is not really happening, and we're so far away from that being viable for most of us that it's
Mm-hmm.
not really worth considering right now.
Yeah, I do agree with you definitely on this. And I'm sure, the viewers would too. But getting back to, voiceover and, the characters you've done throughout your
Mhm.
career, which voiceover role throughout your career you think was like, wow, how am I gonna pull this off? Like, a character that really gave you some shit.
there have there've really not been many characters that I'm like, how the heck am I going to do this? Because usually if you get to the point, that might be in the audition process that there are characters like that you're like, boy, I don't know if I could do this role. But usually if you land the role, it's because you can do it and you know how to do it. I would say probably the most like intimidating character from a standpoint of like I really hope I don't fuck this up.
Mm.
Probably was Kawaki in Boruto, just because he means so much to so many people, and he's got such a rich backstory, full of a lot of pain and trauma that I wanted to do justice to. And I feel like I did. It was made difficult though because the studio that dubs Boruto like had just a revolving door of directors, and so I had like four different directors in just the first few months of recording for the show, which makes it very hard to um, maintain like a lot of like consistency. The
Mm.
different directors might have different opinions about the character or the direction he should go, or they might just be like, "Hey, you've been doing them, so go for it," in which case then now you don't have that like outside perspective helping you stay on track. So I guess I would say Kawaki, probably, because there's a lot to him.
Oh yeah, but that was like an anime series, right? Or
Yeah,
something. Yeah, so
Boruto is an anime series.
I wanted to ask, I believe the original was dubbed in Japanese.
Correct.
Yeah, so you had to do ADR.
Yeah, we do ADR, which for those at home is automated dialogue replacement, and it's it's pretty formulaic. They'll play the Japanese line, and you've got your timestamps, and then they'll do the three beeps to let you know when your entry point is. You try to match the lip flaps on the screen to the best of your
Mm-hmm.
ability while keeping as much of the original emotion from the Japanese performance in there, or adding more, if the Japanese performance wasn't what it should be.
Oh yeah.
So I've done about 30 sessions for that character and more than 100
Oh
episodes
damn.
by this point.
I mean, while doing ADR, you hear the original in your ears. Is it not confusing for you to say your lines as you're listening to the OG?
So what they do is that they'll preview it first and then you'll do yours afterwards. So you're not listening like simultaneously. So it's
Okay.
like kind of a play and repeat really. They'll do
Oh,
their line
okay.
and then you do yours like right afterwards.
Oh yeah, okay. That's cool then. Yeah. So you do ADR and you have done roles where you didn't need to, match the lips.
We do basically everything, anything that pays you to talk. I narrate audiobooks. I've got three McDonald's commercials running right now. I do anime, video games, anything that to keep the lights on.
So you enjoy everything that's related to voiceover, pretty much.
Of course I don't. No, I think that the getting to do the sessions and to participate in media that people care about is definitely like the reward that makes it fulfilling, but a
Uh-huh.
huge amount of the job is really tedious and can be pretty miserable, especially like if you struggle with being with feelings of rejection. This is a terrible industry for you because that's like all we do is get rejected. For every one
Oh yeah.
job that I book, I audition at least probably 50 different projects. That's like, if you do the math, that's like 96% or 98% rejection rate. So you got
Oh
to get
yeah.
used to get it to hearing no a lot. But the craft and the telling of stories and bringing life to people's characters is really fulfilling.
Oh, definitely is. Speaking of the auditions and the audition process, has it ever happened to you that you have performed a voice in the audition that you couldn't really pull off in the studio once you were cast?
Very rarely, but it occasionally does happen. But usually, if in my case anyway, it can happen because the or because of like a change in direction, for instance. So I auditioned for, well, I can't tell you what it is, but it's a very very big video game, and I was supposed to do well in the audition. They wanted either a like Slavic Eastern European accent or a Scandinavian accent, and I do a lot of Scandinavian accented roles. For whatever reason, I'm just very good at like a Norwegian or generic Scandinavian accent, and so like Heimdall and Smite is a good example of one of those that I've done, but there've been several. And so when I got booked for the session, I assumed it was going to be for the Scandinavian accent. And so then I had auditioned both accents, but I'm much better at Scandinavian than Slavic or Russian. So I got into the session and they wanted the Slavic accent. And then it was a way, way bigger character than I thought it was, or that it was going to be. So I had auditioned with it thinking I was just going to do a few like environmental lines as this
Mm-hmm.
Slavic accent, which I could do that and it would be believable or whatever. But like really long in-depth narrative stuff is a lot harder. You have to be much
Oh yeah,
more
definitely.
authentic and natural with it. And so I was struggling to keep the accent consistent on that. And we
Mm-hmm.
tried for like maybe half an hour in the first session, and before they were like, you know what, if this accent isn't quite lining up, let's just do the Scandinavian. Let's give that a shot. And so I did that, and they were like, oh yeah, that's way. Let's just use that. So it ended up being fine, and I've
Mm-hmm.
got my sixth session for that game coming up next week. So it ended up going great. But it for the first hour, it was pretty embarrassing when I was like, oh no, they want this accent, and I just like it's almost there, but the director's just not happy with it, and it was pretty
Yeah.
embarrassing. But um,
But
most of the time when roles have that happen when it's not me is because maybe it's a really strenuous like screamy monster or like gravelly kind of voice, and maybe the
Mhm.
actor thinks they can sustain it but they can't, and so halfway through the session they go hoarse or something. So
Oh
thankfully
yeah.
that doesn't happen to me because I've been a professional metal singer for 20 years, but that does happen to people.
Well, I mean, I was told by other voice actors that they would usually leave this kind of screams for the end of the session so that, they still would have voice.
Yeah, and that does happen, but like there are some, if your character is like a big, like say an orc, and maybe he talks like this or something, and
Oh
if you
yeah.
don't know how to place that voice, you're going to struggle by the end of the first hour or so. And then it's like if they're trying to put gravel in the wrong place vocally, then you might end up being like this after an hour,
Oh yeah.
regardless of whether you're like screaming or whatnot.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, oftentimes you may be in the recording booth for 2 or 3 and more hours, and that may be
Four.
really, yeah, that may be really exhausting.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I mean, this game I was just talking about that is still NDA, my fifth session for it, um, was all five had been 4 hour sessions, and we did one every single day. So this was into hour, 16 through 20 for the week. And they had a new character that was a very, I can't say what it is, but a very monstery kind of voice that was very strained sounding. So it was like this, so very breathy but pinched and textured, raspy. And so I had to do that for like 4 hours, and that included some battle lines too. So in that already strained voice print, then you're having to like really go into it. And then if you do like two, three, four, five takes of each of these lines for hundreds of lines, by the end of that, even I know what I'm doing with raspy monster voices. I teach like the class on doing extreme voices. I was still shot, so it can be pretty tough.
Oh yeah, we all believe you. I mean, voiceover, it's one hell of an industry, and it can be really exhausting on, a lot of actors. But our fans mostly know us for interviewing actors from Half-Life, and
Oh, okay.
you have been in Half-Life Alyx, and you have voiced, some soldiers and whatnot. So, what can you tell us about that?
That was the sessions that I did for Half-Life Alyx were some of probably the most like bucket list kind of sessions of my career for a few reasons. I was still living in Los Angeles at the time, and it's pre-pandemic, and I remember seeing the audition come through, and the code name was Jamiroquai, and usually they'll when they code name a game they'll like strip all the relevant information out so that you don't know what it is. Very very secretive. In general, the video game industry is like in Devil May Cry 5, for instance. I was in Nashville for that, and I booked a flight, flew out to LA for the session, drove to the studio, which I didn't know the name of, and didn't get. I was in the booth, and I still didn't know what the game was or who I was going to be playing until I was like, "Hey, can I know like what we're working on?" They're like, "Oh yeah, it's Devil May Cry 5." So anyway,
Oh.
so something similar with Half-Life Alyx, like didn't say anything about the game except one of the lines in the script I was reading through mentioned Combine, and I went, yo, this is Half-Life. And so I was like, oh man, I gotta just really lock in. And I do a lot of military kind of characters, or call outs. I think the key is that a lot of people try too hard. They try to sound like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm a big soldier, I'm a whatever. But the thing with people that talk or that have like call outs for a living is it's effortless, because these are commands and call outs that you're saying day in, day out, all the time. You've trained
Yeah.
with these commands. So when I'm approaching the combine, for instance, I wanted to make it seem with that like effortless, but also like sinister and kind of soulless. They lack even the humanity that like normal military soldiers might have. So everything was super deadpan. You know, Vizcon, enemy unknown, like probable anti-citizen, and so it's just really straightforward. And we did probably
Oh wow.
800 lines for all of that, and a
Oh
lot of it
yeah.
was ad-libbed. Like that famous grenade scene in the car where the grenade comes through the window, and then they're like, "Oh, where was it? I think it was a grenade. Like, oh, where it's under the chain. It's grab it." And they blow
Oh,
up.
oh, that
Like
was you too?
we did like 8 versions of that scene of just like, okay, now you're gonna be the guy on the left trying to find it. Okay, now you're gonna be the guy on the right who's like trying to like command him. No, it's red. It's under the seat. Like, I think it was this. And so we recorded that like over and over. Just they didn't have lines for it. It was just like whatever
Oh.
you think you would say in a situation where a grenade comes through your window.
Oh
Yeah, and
wow.
and so I don't actually know how much uh how many of the combine are me, because like I remember recording I recorded most all of the like was it Overwatch says stop kicking it. I think that was, I remember recording that as well. And so I don't know if potentially, they just have every actor that's doing all the combine do all the combine lines so they can mix and
Mm-hmm.
match. I mean, I'm definitely Wallhammer. That was officially what I was booked for. But then a lot of the
Okay.
cutscenes and like the ad lib stuff I was also doing. So whether or not that ended up being in the game, or if they just had safeties, who knows. But what was really bucket listy about it though was like, obviously, like everybody did, I grew up playing Valve games. I love Half-Life. I've got like 1,500 hours in Team Fortress. Who doesn't want to be a part of a Valve game? And so
Yeah.
when I booked this role, it's like, wow, I'm literally going to be a little piece of like gaming history. This is one of the most iconic enemy forces of all time. And so then when I got the session dates, it ended up, this was bucket list number two. It was the first project that I was out on that took place on the Warner Brothers lot. So like I'm driving to Burbank, and I'm at the time I had a pretty sweet Corvette, and so I'm like rolling into the Warner Brothers gates. The water tower is there in front of me, and I grew
Yeah.
up like watching Animaniacs, and I parked my car under the water tower on the Warner Brothers lot to then go record for Half-Life Alyx. Was just such a surreal and fulfilling moment. And then I ended up getting called back for two more sessions just for additional pickups and stuff. So we did three sessions in total. And I just my one regret is that we didn't have more stuff to record because it was so cool being in that studio with so many legendary producers and people. And that studio has made so many legendary things. So it was really really fun.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Have you ever gotten the chance to meet Gabe?
I know I haven't. I there was what was her name? I want to say it was Rachel. There was one Valve staffer that was there for the sessions that was kind of in charge of the audio lead.
Hmm.
So I think it was like Valve audio lead, Rachel something or other. But I should go back and hit her back up again, see what she's doing. But no, I haven't met Gabe. And in general, like sessions can be pretty isolating. Like there's not a ton of people involved usually in any given session. I mean, there might be like five or something, but usually it's like you've got the engineer, you've got the director, you've got the actor, me, you've got maybe one like the writer for the game, and then like the audio lead from the game, or there might just be one person from the actual studio. And usually there are not any other actors. Usually it's just
Ah.
you, and you're not doing ensemble reads. There have been a few sessions that I've done that have been in ensemble, and that's always so much more fun, because you can bounce off each other and like feed on each other's acting. But it's more expensive, it's less efficient, and especially with like post-COVID era, it's just less safe because there's more people there. So it
Hmm.
was already rare before the pandemic, and it's almost non-existent now.
Oh yeah, but I mean, yeah, usually you record your lines alone in the studio, but if
Yeah.
you're playing off of another actor, I suppose you can hear them in your headphones. Do they play you sometimes?
So in like a cartoon or an anime, or a more narrative game, sometimes they will. Well, especially for anime, they'll almost always play the other lines to give you context for your thing. But if for
Uh-huh.
like for the Combine, for instance, because most of the lines are independent battle game state chatter. When it's you see an enemy, and so then you call out that you enemy is like in sights that you're pursuing, whatever it is, or you're saying status checks like need more ammunition, whatever it is. Those are kind of happening absent any other scene context. So in those cases, you just get a big spreadsheet and you just like, you know, Whiskey Tango Niner, enemy unknown. And then you like just read down the list, do that twice, and then they'll say, "Yeah, can we get another one? It's like a little faster. This is going to be for mid combat, so we need more urgency." And then you do that, and then knock them out.
Oh, wow, it's interesting to, hear that voice come out of your mouth without all the post-processing effects because, in the actual game there's a lot of processings on the
Well,
voices, so
and
it's
that was
hard to
the other
hear.
thing I was surprised about was that like usually for these kind of things they will have you'll record your stuff raw and then they'll send it over to a post-production house later to do filters and stuff. But they had the filter there, and so like it was really crazy to hear I know I've already said it, but like the in the elevator when you're like identify yourself, probable anti-citizen. And then like the filter would play back when they would be playing it back on their side, and it'd be like, oh my god, it's real. Like, you hear the pops and the cracks, and
Yeah.
everything on it, and it's like, it's really happening. I'm really a Combine. So like I was just as excited as everybody else.
Have they actually played you some of the earlier clips from Half-Life 2 of the Combine so that you would get an
Oh, I
idea?
mean, I definitely did. I went back and like just devoured all the older Combine stuff to make
Uh-huh.
sure that I was like in the pocket. Although the Combine and Half-Life Alyx are a little different. They're especially the lower tier ones, the grunts are like more human than
Yeah.
and more intelligible than the ones from Half-Life 2. And then as they get more powerful or higher rank, they get like less and less intelligible. And like Wallhammer, for instance, is like when I've gone back and listened to the audio dumps of his lines, and like you can't really understand his words at all. It's like total vocal fry and like and so that it was interesting as a design choice to show that like the more the more powerful you are in the Combine, the more alien you become, kind of. So that was interesting.
Well, if you go back to Half-Life 2, it was pretty hard to make out what they were saying.
Right. Yeah, but and that was
And
kind of across the board. You couldn't really understand them that well in Half-Life 2.
and it's pretty funny because actually, it was an audio lead who recorded those voice lines from
Oh,
Valve.
really? I was gonna say I don't even know who did it back then, but it has been funny because like I've had several people, whether at conventions or whatever it is, or just on Twitter, that are like, so if you're at Combine in Half-Life Alyx, did you also do the Combine in Half-Life 2? And I want to be like, how old do you think I am, bro? That game came out when I was like 12.
But it would have been cool.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been cool. Yeah, I wish I was voice acting for the Combine. I guess I would have been like 16, because didn't it come out in like 2004?
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
Yeah, so I would have been
exactly.
like 16.
Um, so okay, so you went back on your own and re-listened to some of the Combine stuff from Half-Life 2. Valve themselves didn't play you anything in the
Yeah,
studio.
I mean, they would give you like, here's a reference video, or once you got there, but for the most part, I always try to, if there is existing audio from other franchise or other titles in the franchise, I'll try to go and listen to it before a session so I can make sure that I'm like locked in.
Did they show you any art of the character?
Did they show me any art? I'm not sure. I want to say no.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I they had art of like Combine, but I mean, I also, I knew what Combine looked like, and they
Yeah.
told me, oh well, your guy is the Combine Charger, Wallhammer. He's got a big shield, so he's kind of a tankier kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So that was, if I just think, okay, I know what Combine look like, bigger, tanky, got it. That's doesn't need a ton. So I can't remember if they showed me any art or not.
Well, I mean, I guess they didn't include any in the audition because you would have
No.
immediately recognized the character, right?
Yeah, there was
So,
none in the
yeah.
audition. And it's like I would say 70% of the time, 75%, yeah, I'll say 70% of the time you don't get artwork in your auditions, which sucks because art is like the most useful, like way useful for informing our performances. Um, and not just for like monsters and enemies and stuff, just any normal person in a video game, it's still going to help you because you can see like, well, are they kind of tall and skinny? Do they have like a big nose, so we should have
Yeah.
like some nasality? Do they have like kind of buck teeth, so you need to hear more of the teeth in their voice? Like, but if you don't have any of that, it can kind of leave you adrift, and you just have to, well, I'm going to make a choice and hope it's the right one.
Yeah, and oftentimes it doesn't need to be the right choice. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the thing, right? Is that like I tell actually a lot of newer actors this is they'll worry about, oh well, how do I know what the client wants? And it's like that's not your job actually. What your job is to make the client want what you're giving. So if you do a compelling enough job, you can make the client decide that this is the direction the character needs to go. So that's kind of where I try to approach it from now. Is I'll tell them what they're gonna want.
That's a smart way to go about it, yeah. Do you have a favorite line of the Combine? Anything that, stood out?
Man, it the like Overwatch says stop kicking it is like so funny. Uh, I think what I enjoy most about Half-Life Alyx is oh, a big truck going by. The way that they did put a little more humor and like human emotion here and there in it that make them not just this inscrutable, inhuman, like kind of covenant-esque force from the original Halo, but that they do have these deadpan moments of humor and like kind of showing the silliness of I mean, they're not, they're not fascists, but it's clearly a fascism analog, right? That this
Yeah.
overwhelming exterior force with security checkpoints and everything, like showing kind of the banality of evil, if you will, um, did a really great job with that because they don't know they're being funny. They're not trying to be funny, but it highlights the silliness implicit within that kind of evil, if that makes any sense.
It does. I mean, the stop kicking it scene, it became really a huge meme in the community, and it was, just really funny.
I think the other comparison, I guess, from I think this was Half-Life 2 that was kind of along those lines was the like pick up that can line, and I'm glad that they leaned more in that direction. But then also, it's funny how many people have asked me to sign things with like pick up that can on the print, and it's like, well, that wasn't me. And they're like, I don't care.
Well, you're still, a Combine soldier voice actor, so
Exactly, like
I
it's
think you have the right to do that.
yeah, so I'll do it. It's what they want, so I'm happy to oblige.
Do you go on cons often?
Not really. I would like to, but I'm just not a very big deal, frankly. Also, I haven't traveled much in the last few years in the wake of the pandemic, but it's mostly just a numbers thing, and unfortunately for whatever reason video games just don't bring a lot of people to conventions. Most conventions that will really have unless it's like Genshin Impact obviously, um,
Yeah.
but most people will go to conventions for anime actors or anime like merchandise, but they're just not many for video games. And of course, that's different at like I feel like there's industry conventions for video games like PAX or GDC or, E3, rest in peace. But there aren't a lot of like huge video game fan conventions. I'm going to be doing one next year for called Level Up that's here in Las Vegas. And then I'm going to an anime convention or just pop culture convention in Orlando in September. But other than that, and then I did Anime Las Vegas in March. So I've done like a handful, but not like a crazy number. Now, if Funko brings out Combine Funko Pops, then I'll go do a little more convention stuff because Funko Pops are still where all the money is at for conventions.
Wow, yeah, that'd be really cool. I think the
It
fans would
would
be wow.
get
I
them on the
mean,
phone.
yeah.
Hey, Funko,
Yeah, Funko, if you're listening to this,
if you're listening, Funko, make a Combine Funko Pop.
I mean, Duke Nukem?
Oh yeah,
I mean, that's been a huge game franchise for so many years, and I mean, the actor of Duke Nukem, John St. John, has been begging Funko to finally make a Duke Nukem
there's
Funko.
no Duke Nukem Funko Pop.
Not officially, from what
That's
I know.
crazy.
It's
There
crazy.
should be because that's like one of the most iconic video game characters of like all time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Getting back a bit to Half-Life Alyx, have you ever played the game?
I, look, I after it came out, I went and I got a Valve Index and I got a fancy computer to play it, and I like set it up in the you can't see it this room back here my library, and I played all of like 1 hour of it, and then I just never touched it again.
Oh wow.
Um, I it's not that I didn't like it. It's I actually had way more fun showing other people the game. Like I loved bringing friends over because it's still like by far the most immersive and impressive virtual reality game out there. And so uh, I think it's even more fun to just exist in that world and like pick up stuff and throw it, or use the markers to draw on stuff. And um, so at some point, I'll probably go through and play it because it's just so iconic. But also at the same time, like there's this thing that happens when you work in games, especially if you're like an actor in games, where the immersion, the kind of which is the point, is being within this world and the story. And you don't get any immersion, right? Because to us, it's like, oh, that's me. Oh, that's my buddy John, or like, oh,
Oh
this
yeah.
is this so it kind of takes some of that magic away in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
which is it's kind of sad, because I was a big
Oh
gamer
yeah.
growing up, and I really don't play games that much anymore. And part of it's because I'm old and cranky now, but part of it's because of like RPGs especially. I would have devoured Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or the first one, the remake, because I lived, ate, and breathed Final Fantasy VII when I was growing up. But like I'm in the remake, so like how I know like half the cast in that game. So it's like, oh, that's Todd. Oh, hey, I recognize. Hey, way to go, Tom. I heard you in this scene. I'm calling him up. So like it just something is lost. But that's the double-edged sword of contributing to media that was important to you. Is how the sausage is made.
I'm glad you brought up this, the talk of the immersion, because, you've been the Combine in Half-Life Alyx, and, the voice is so heavily processed that, I don't think even you can make it out that it's your voice. So are you not disappointed a bit that, they hid so much of your voice?
No, not a bit. I mean the filter is what makes it iconic, right?
Yeah. Well,
I mean
yeah,
underneath it, yes, I was acting, but like again, it's pretty inhuman and deadpan. Like there's not a whole lot of emotion in it, so it's more of just knowing that I got to contribute to this. But you know, I would say what is more disappointing in that kind of a scenario is when, like in Devil May Cry 5, like I mentioned earlier, in Devil May Cry 5, I recorded a solid 3 hours of dialogue, and then that was also my first really big video game session for a AAA video game, and so I was really excited. And then I was on NDA for almost 2 years. It took forever for that game to come out. And so then when it finally did come out, I was like, man, it's release day. Can't wait to see what people think of Balrog. I can't wait. And so then I'm seeing online. I posted in, I don't know, the DMC subreddit or something, and then or mentioned it on Twitter, and people were like, "Hell yeah, ignite the flames!" And I'm like, "Oh my god, I've got a catchphrase. That must be the coolest line, right?" And so then I like looking up stuff about what his lines are, and then it like gradually sinks in. That's not just the coolest line that everybody likes. That's like the one fucking line that they left. Like
Wow.
90% of the stuff that I recorded got cut out. And so that was really disappointing,
That
because it
sucks.
it would have been Balrog was going to be a much more talkative, and prolific character. And for those, if you haven't played it, it's one of Dante's weapons can talk, and so originally I was doing all the like attack name burning volcano fist and like combat, taunting the enemy and stuff, and they cut out almost all of it except for a combo counter, ignite the flames now, which is like when he's powering up, and then I don't know, like one other thing really. And so that kind of situation hurts worse than just like, oh, they processed it a lot, because usually we know that like, oh, we know it's going to be very heavy processing when we go into it.
Hmm. Well, I mean, at least you got paid, so that's all that matters. But
It
yeah, I mean, it
it
sucks.
was paid, yeah, and I mean I got paid for Devil May Cry 5 too, but it's it's always cool, the little like notice me, notice my hard work is always nice when we get something that fans like latch onto, like a Overwatch says stop kicking it. Like that's just a fun little moment that you wouldn't have if you were in Half-Life 2, that guy who you can't really understand anything he says.
Yeah.
That's a little less gratifying.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I mean, waiting 2 years,
Two
under an
years, yeah.
NDA to just, hear one of your lines that made it into the final product, that must be, yeah, pretty disappointing
The,
indeed.
the timelines are crazy on projects sometimes. Like probably the worst from that standpoint was System Shock, the remaster. I cast and directed that, and also did a few characters myself for it. But from the first demo, I cast the first demo for them in like 2015 maybe, and then the game, or like they didn't reach out back out to me to like, they weren't in a place to do the rest of the voice work for the game until like 2022 or 2021
Damn.
maybe. And so yeah, so that was like 6 years, and then from the point we recorded it, another at least year or two went by until finally System Shock Remaster came out like last year. And I mean,
Damn.
the game was great, and it won some awards, and it got like 94% positive Steam reviews. So, like, okay, if you're gonna take a long time and you make it perfect, then great, like no complaints. But that still ended up being, from the time that I originally got brought on, you're gonna be the casting director for System Shock, and I'm like, wow. To then finally it being out was like 8 years or something.
Yeah, you probably, would forget that you did something like that back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, truly, it's like, what did I record? Oh yeah, I remember that line.
Getting back to voices, I kind of wanted to ask you, since you're in the biz, for a long time, more or less, that, has it ever happened to you that you've been cast as a character and you recorded all your lines, and later you would find out that you've been recast or something like that?
Yeah, let's see. There was some indie game that happened on. There that might be happening to me right now, but actually no, there was a game. Do you are you familiar with the PlayStation title Miasma? I think it's called.
I'm afraid I'm not.
Okay, I don't think it got much attention, but it was PS5 exclusive, Miasma. Uh, I think it was called Project M during casting and whatnot. Anyway, I got there's like character, and they're in this like kind of post-apocalyptic world, and then character's brother is, it's like a tactics game plus very fan. I mean, the visuals look incredible, but the brother of the main character is like the party member number two, and so they're like going around trying to end the miasma that's killing the world and like save the world, whatever. Anyway, so I was cast as the brother of this main character, and it was going to be like essentially a co-lead. And so we did a bunch of stuff. I did three sessions for it, for at least 8 hours of recording studio time, and then my agent called me up and was like, "Hey, so sorry. I hate making these kind of calls, but the client decided that they actually want the character to be a black character, and
Oh,
so they're recasting you." And I was like, well, at least they're not recasting me because I sucked.
well, yeah, but you did get
Like if it's
paid,
a
right?
creative direction like that, then it's just the biz. I mean, my biggest role, Kawaki, was a recast, and or ish. The original actor that did Kawaki, Chris Nyosi, had like a 40-second scene in like the beginning of episode one, and then he didn't come back until episode 189, like 5 years later. And so
Oh, wow.
in between that point, they recast the role. For I couldn't speculate as to why. It's possible that maybe they never really intended whoever did that episode one thing to be like the voice, but they just wanted to get it out. since it
That's
was like,
possible.
you know,
Yeah.
5 lines. But anyway, so recasts are just anybody who's been in the biz long enough has been on both sides of a recast. You've either gotten a recast role or you've lost a role to a recast, and you just kind of move on.
Yeah, that happens all the time in the industry of voiceover. To wrap this up, actually, I have just a couple of lines from Half-Life Alyx that the fans would love you to recite. Nothing
All right,
special, just some basic lines, but it's always interesting to hear you do the voice without all
sure.
the effects.
Wallhammer is moving on infected. Or maybe a little more like Wallhammer is moving on infected. And then they'd like garble it. Alyx confirmed. Kill confirmed. Hostile is scrambled. All units take advantage. Possible evasion. Requesting hostile location. So it's just very straightforward.
Yeah, wow. But actually, now I can really hear the combine in your voice. Like through all the filters, I can actually now kind of make out
Oh,
your
well, thank
voice.
you.
Yeah. So I guess they
Sorry,
didn't
my
hide your
clothes
voice.
got tangled here. Anyway,
That's
what were you
fine.
saying?
So I guess Valve didn't hide your voice that much. If
Yeah,
people pay
it's,
close
a lot of the
attention.
crackle and whatnot is just kind of in the voice,
Yeah.
especially for the more sinister ones where you're like telling them that you got to kill. It really is pretty much just there's like the radio static and whatnot, but there's not really much pitch shifting either. It was just kill confirmed, and you just kind of live down here, requesting hostile location, and that's the combine, or at least my combine. I don't actually know too much about what the performance differences were between me and the other couple. I think there's not many actors in that game, which was also kind of cool. It was like, wow, there's only like 6 people in this game compared to like God of War Ragnarok, where I'm
Oh
one of
yeah.
like 200, or Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. There's like the list of additional voice actors. I wasn't anybody special in that game, but like the additional voices that were just doing the NPCs was like so big that it wouldn't even fit in one screenshot. So like it's
Wow.
always cool to be a part of a small cast. I mean, I like being a part of a big cast. It's cool to be like I worked with so and so big actor, but like yeah, it's nice to have a little bit more screen time.
We've been just talking about recasting, and I'm just gonna mention this. In Half-Life Alyx, they actually recast the voice of Alex. I'm not sure if you.
Did they?
Yeah, they did. I mean, in Half-Life 2, it was Merle Dandridge, and in Half-Life Alyx, they chose to recast. Uh,
Probably because of age related thing. A
yes,
lot of
yes,
time went
yes.
between those two games.
Yeah, that was exactly what you're talking about. Age related. Yes,
Yeah,
because
that's
they wanted
tough.
like a younger sound to Alex.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough industry. Like there is ageism in the industry, and the reality is that just voices change. And so like even if you're good at sounding youthful, like I mean you listen to the first episodes of SpongeBob and then you listen to him now and like you can definitely tell that Tom's voice has aged a lot. But so is the character. So in some cases it's appropriate. It's tough in things like this when it's like this is supposed to be the same character at the same age or younger or something, and it's obviously going to have a different color to it.
Yeah, but it's also funny because I think they actually found some lines that Merle did for Half-Life Alyx, and
Oh, like as an audition?
well, not exactly. I mean, like she recorded some actual
Or
lines
maybe
from the
like a
game.
screen test or something?
It could be, those lines were eventually cut, but yeah,
Sure. That's pretty cool. Yeah, there's a lot of depth to that game, and I had really hoped when it came out that it would be like this is the start of like what virtual reality gaming is capable of. But it really seems like every other developer went, well, that's as good as it can get. We can't do that, so we're just not going to do virtual reality games anymore because it's been pretty dead like since then, which is it's
oh
kind of
yeah,
crazy.
and it's been 4 years since the release of Half-Life Alyx. Crazy,
Has
isn't
it?
it?
Well, I guess it has to have been because it was pandemic when or like right after when it came out.
Yeah,
Man,
indeed.
time goes quickly.
All right. Do you think? the Combine would have anything to say to the fans of the Vogue podcast?
It would probably say something like you're all anti-citizens, and then get on the ground or something.
Well, yeah, if we were in the world of Half-Life, that is probably what would happen. And we would
Stop killing
yeah,
us.
stop killing us. Well, thanks, Mike, so much for coming on and, talking to me about your career and Half-Life.
Thank you for
And
having me, and yeah, and for bearing with all the like myriad reschedules. For those watching, we had to reschedule this interview like 5 separate times. It was ridiculous. So, oh, long overdue.
oh, I almost forgot, Mike. Is there anything you'd like to promote?
Yeah, actually, there is. I am. Let's see, what day is today? Today we're recording this on the 7th. I I don't. I will say a caveat up front. I don't want to make my career teaching. I like acting, but as a metal singer of many years, have found that there are a lot of techniques in metal and in voiceover that overlap. And a lot of people were asking me to do a class. And so during the pandemic, I started a class called Extreme Vocals for Extreme Roles. And I thought maybe 10 or 15 people would show up, and 120 people signed up for it. And so
Oh,
that
wow.
started this just crazy class series for this. And now it's been 3 or 4 years since the first rendition, and I've taught more than 500 actors and aspiring talent to how to safely and sustainably do creatures, monsters, raspy, textured voices, metal vocals, and then have more nuance in their auditions, and like how to implement these things with artistry and not just ferocity. I haven't done one in like a year, but I've had enough people asking me that I finally just scheduled another one of these. So if you go to Extreme Vocals for Extreme, or actually go to my Twitter, that'll be easiest. It's twitter.com at what he said VO. What he said VO is my Twitter handle, and you'll find information about that class registration. I'm only going to do 2 of them, and then I'm probably not going to do another one for at least another year again. So if you've always wanted to learn how to do that kind of stuff, now is your chance.
Are these online classes?
Yeah, they're webinars. So we have a Zoom-ish kind of class, and I'll talk for like 20, 30 minutes about some facet of character acting or vocal health and anatomy, and teaching you what pieces, parts you have in here, and then what you can do with them basically, and then how to implement those in your auditions. And then I'll like take 10 or 15 minutes, do Q&As, like walk through it with some people that are struggling. And we'll do warm-ups and exercises together to help you find where they're at. And so it's like kind of a combo coaching session lecture. And then at the end, with whatever time we have left, we do a Q&A. And it's usually about 3.5 hours in length. And then I send you a recording of it too, because I just vomit knowledge the entire time, and it can be a little bewildering. But Extreme Vocals for Extreme Roles is the class name, and yeah, go hit up my Twitter, or you can also add me on Instagram. I've just started trying to do that because every other social media is dying. I deleted my TikTok. My Instagram is instagram.com/actor Michael Schwalbe, SCHWALBE. Mostly over there, it's just pictures of beautiful desert landscapes and my the dirt bike adventures and
Oh,
cocktails that I
wow.
like making. A little more personal side of things.
Well, still, we wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. And
Thank you.
if you guys, our viewers, are interested in, studying or, getting some VO classes, then make sure to join Michael's class, and we will include all the links in the description to make it easier for you. Mike,
Thank you for
thanks
doing that.
again for joining me, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. And I hope to talk to some of the listeners soon as well. Don't be a stranger.